I should have known something was wrong when Brett started sending me flowers every month like clockwork. 24 coral roses always on the 15th, delivered to the dermatology clinic where I worked. My coworker Michelle thought it was romantic. 4 years of marriage and he still woos you, she'd say, arranging them in the crystal vase we kept in the break room. I'd smile and nod, not mentioning that the flowers came with a text message. Hope you're having a productive day. Call me at lunch. It was Tuesday, June 25th, and I stood in our kitchen at 6:15 a.m., the early Arizona sun already brutal through the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the McDowell Mountains. Our house in Paradise Valley was everything Brett wanted. Modern, expensive, pristine. The granite countertops reflected my face as I cracked eggs into a bowl. Scrambled, not fried. Turkey bacon, not pork. Whole wheat toast, not white. Brett's preferences governed everything, down to the type of salt I used. The shower shut off upstairs. I had 4 minutes. I moved efficiently, plating his breakfast, pouring coffee into his favorite mug. The navy one with "World's Best Husband" that his mother Lorraine gave him last Christmas. The Wall Street Journal sat folded at his place at the kitchen island, exactly where he expected it. Everything in its place. Everything perfect. Another day in paradise, I whispered and didn't catch the irony. Brett came down at 6:31, his hair still damp, wearing the charcoal suit he'd picked out Sunday night. He was handsome in that polished, controlled way, dark hair always perfectly styled, jaw always clean-shaven, posture always straight. At 34 he looked like the kind of man who had his life together. The kind of man my parents were relieved I'd married. "Morning," he said, kissing my forehead before sitting down. He unfolded the journal without looking at me. "Morning. I have a full schedule today. Mrs. Patterson is coming in for her chemical peel, and we've got 3 new consultations." He sipped his coffee, still reading. "What time will you be home?" "Around 6. Maybe 6:30 if the last consult runs long." His eyes flicked up. 6:30 is pushing it, Vanessa. I'd like dinner by 7. I'll text you if I'm running late. He returned to his newspaper, the conversation over. I ate my own breakfast standing at the counter, Greek yogurt with berries, and tried not to notice how my stomach tightened whenever he was in the room. At the clinic, Michelle was already gushing about the flowers before I'd even put my purse down. "Look at these. They just arrived. That man of yours is something else." I touched one of the coral petals. Brett proposed to me at the Desert Botanical Garden 4 years ago, surrounded by blooming cacti and desert marigolds. He'd chosen coral roses because I'd mentioned once that I liked the color. He remembered everything. Every preference, every comment, every moment I let my guard down. "You're so lucky," Michelle said. "My husband forgets our anniversary half the time." Lucky. The word sat wrong in my chest, but I smiled anyway. "Yeah, I am." What I didn't tell Michelle was that Brett texted me every hour. "How's your morning?" at 9. "Lunch break?" at noon. "Afternoon going well?" at 3. If I didn't respond within 20 minutes, he'd call. Once my phone died during a procedure, and when I finally charged it 2 hours later, I had 14 missed calls and a voicemail asking if I was avoiding him on purpose. That night, over the dinner I'd rushed home to prepare, grilled chicken, roasted vegetables, quinoa, Brett reviewed our bank statements on his iPad while we ate. "What's this charge at Target for $47? I swallowed my bite of chicken. "Household stuff. Paper towels, laundry detergent, some dish soap." $47 seems high. Everything's gotten expensive. He made a note on his screen. "Try to keep household purchases under $30 unless you check with me first." I nodded, my appetite gone. I was 31 years old, had a full-time job, contributed to our household income, and was being told to ask permission to buy laundry detergent. Sunday dinner at Lorraine's was always the same. We arrived at her North Scottsdale home at 4:55. Never early, never late. Lorraine valued punctuality almost as much as she valued control. She answered the door in a cream-colored pantsuit, her silver hair perfectly styled, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. "Right on time," she said, kissing Brett's cheek and giving me a brief nod. "Dinner's almost ready." Her dining room was formal and cold. Cream walls, antique furniture, fresh flowers on the table. We sat in our usual spots while Lorraine served pot roast with carrots and potatoes. For the next hour she talked about Lorraine's elegant affairs, the catering business she'd built over 25 years. I'm doing the Morrison wedding at the Phoenician next month, she said, cutting her meat into precise pieces. The bride wanted a taco bar. Can you imagine? At the Phoenician. I told her absolutely not. Brett laughed. You saved her from herself, Mom. Someone has to maintain standards. Lorraine looked at me. Vanessa, you're quiet tonight. Just tired. Long week. She returned to her food, the subject closed. After dinner, while clearing plates in Lorraine's immaculate kitchen, I tried to sound casual. My sister Jamie invited me to a wine tasting event next Saturday in Tempe. Would it be okay if... Brett's voice cut through the kitchen. We have plans next Saturday. I turned. Do we? I don't remember. We're spending the day together. His tone was final. Lorraine appeared beside me, taking the plates from my hands. Vanessa dear, you know Brett works so hard all week. Weekends are for family time, not running around with girlfriends. Heat flushed my face. Jamie's my sister, not a girlfriend. Brett's jaw tightened in that way I'd learned to recognize. We'll discuss this at home. In the bathroom I texted Jamie, can't make Saturday, sorry. Her response came immediately. He said no again? I stared at those 4 words, my hands shaking. I wanted to type the truth, that I wasn't allowed to have plans without Brett's approval, that I couldn't spend money without justification, that every hour of my day was monitored and controlled. That somewhere in the last 4 years I'd become a guest in my own life. Instead, I deleted the text thread and flushed the toilet, composing my face before returning to the dining room where my husband and his mother were discussing the proper way to fold napkins. On the drive home, Brett was silent until we pulled into our garage. Then he turned off the engine and looked at me. You embarrassed me in front of my mother. Brett, I just asked about. You know how important family dinners are. You know weekends are our time. But you'd rather run off with your sister than spend time with your husband. That's not. I work 60 hours a week to give you this life, Vanessa. This house, your car, everything. The least you can do is respect my time. I sat there in the dark garage, my throat tight, and said what I always said, you're right. I'm sorry. He smiled, then reaching over to squeeze my hand. I know you are. Come on, let's go inside. That night, lying beside him in our king-sized bed, I stared at the ceiling fan rotating slowly and tried to remember who I used to be. The Vanessa who graduated top of her esthetician class. The Vanessa who had opinions and plans and friends. The Vanessa who existed before she became Brett Caldwell's perfectly controlled wife. My phone buzzed on the nightstand, a text from Jamie, miss you. I turned the phone face down and closed my eyes, not knowing that in 3 weeks, everything would shatter in ways I couldn't yet imagine. The next 2 weeks passed in that same controlled rhythm. Breakfast at 6:30, work until 6, dinner by 7, Sunday at Lorraine's. On the surface nothing changed. But underneath I started noticing things. It was a Wednesday in early July when my 3 p.m. client canceled, something about her daughter getting sick. I texted Brett to let him know I'd be home early, but he didn't respond. That wasn't unusual, he was often in meetings. I drove home through the midday heat, the temperature already hitting 108 degrees, and pulled into our garage at 3:45. The house was quiet. Brett's car was in the garage, which surprised me. He'd said he had back-to-back meetings all afternoon. I walked into the kitchen and froze. His laptop sat open on the counter, the screen still lit. Brett never left his laptop open. Never. He was meticulous about closing it, locking it, keeping his work separate from everything else. I stepped closer, telling myself I was just going to close it for him. So, the screen showed a Google search bar with words that made my stomach drop. How to make someone more submissive in marriage. My hand went to my mouth. There were multiple tabs open across the top. I could see partial titles. Training difficult wives, breaking down resistance, teaching respect through consequences. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, wanting to click, afraid to click, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Footsteps creaked on the stairs. I jerked away from the laptop and practically ran to the refrigerator, yanking it open and staring blindly at the contents. My hands were shaking. You're home early. Brett's voice made me jump. I turned, trying to arrange my face into something normal. Client canceled. Thought I'd get a head start on dinner. His eyes went immediately to the laptop, then back to me. I was just finishing up some work. Okay. He crossed to the counter and closed the laptop in one smooth motion, his face giving nothing away. What are you thinking for dinner? I don't know. Maybe that chicken recipe you liked. Sounds good. He picked up the laptop and walked toward his office. I'll be in here for another hour or so. The door closed behind him with a soft click. I stood there in the kitchen, the refrigerator still open, cold air spilling out around me, and tried to convince myself I'd misread what I'd seen. Maybe it was research for work. Maybe it was something his boss sent him. Maybe. But even as I made excuses, something in my chest tightened like a fist. That night in bed, I lay beside him staring at the ceiling fan, watching the blades rotate in the dim light from the hallway. Brett's breathing was steady beside me, already asleep, and I couldn't stop thinking about those search terms. Training. Breaking down. Consequences. I was his wife, not a dog to be trained. The thought came sharp and clear, and I felt something shift inside me. Not quite anger yet, but the first whisper of it. The first whisper of real fear. By Friday, I'd almost convinced myself to forget about it. Brett had been perfectly normal, attentive even. He'd brought home Thai food without being asked, my favorite pad CW from the place on Scottsdale Road. We ate dinner at the kitchen island, and I was halfway through my noodles when he said, "You're getting thick around the middle. Maybe you should skip the peanut sauce." I stopped mid-bite. What? I'm just saying. He cut into his chicken with surgical precision, not looking at me. I take care of myself. I expect the same from my wife. My mother was a size 4 her entire marriage. The comparison to Lorraine hit harder than the criticism itself. I looked down at my plate, at the noodles I'd been enjoying 2 seconds ago, and felt my appetite dissolve. I started. I'm not attacking you, Vanessa. I'm trying to help you. His voice was calm, reasonable. You want to feel good about yourself, don't you? I weighed 132 pounds at 5'6". I'd weighed the same since college. I wore a size 6. I was not thick. But I heard myself say, "You're right. I should probably cut back. That's my girl." He reached over and squeezed my hand, then returned to his dinner like nothing had happened. I sat there pushing noodles around my plate, my throat tight, my eyes burning. Later, standing in our bathroom in my underwear, I examined myself in the full-length mirror. Turned sideways. Sucked in my stomach. Searched for the flaws Brett apparently saw so clearly. My phone buzzed on the counter. A text from Jamie. "Dinner tomorrow? Just us sisters." I picked up the phone, typed, "I'd love to," then deleted it. Typed, "Sorry, can't," then deleted that too. Finally settled on, "Can't, sorry. Brett and I have plans." We didn't have plans. But I couldn't face Jamie right now, couldn't sit across from her and pretend everything was fine when she'd see right through me. He always did. Her response came fast. "He said no again?" I turned off my phone without replying. Sunday dinner at Lorraine's felt different that week. The pot roast was the same, the cream-colored walls were the same, but something in the air had changed. Or maybe I was just finally paying attention. Lorraine served her famous tres leches cake for dessert and launched into a story about a wedding client. The bride wanted to keep her own last name, she said, shaking her head like this was the most absurd thing she'd ever heard. Can you imagine? What's the point of getting married if you won't submit to your husband? She looked directly at me when she said it. Brett was raised properly, Lorraine continued, cutting her cake into precise squares. He knows how a marriage should work. The man leads, the woman follows. That's God's design. I felt Brett's eyes on me, waiting. Times have changed, I said carefully. Lorraine's laugh was sharp enough to cut glass. And look how well that's working out. Divorce rates through the roof. My marriage lasted 23 years until Carl died because I knew my place. The air conditioning hummed against the silence. Brett reached over and squeezed my hand under the table. Too hard to be affectionate, hard enough to bruise. "Vanessa understands," he said. "Don't you, honey?" "Yes," I heard myself say. "Of course." Lorraine smiled, satisfied, and returned to her cake. The next week, Brett started taking phone calls in other rooms. He'd be sitting on the couch watching the news, his phone would ring, and he'd stand up and walk into his office without a word. I'd hear his voice through the door. Low, controlled, impossible to make out. "Who was that?" I asked the third time it happened. "Just a business thing." "Nobody you know." "A client. Potential investor." He didn't look up from his phone. "Why?" "Just curious." The calls kept coming. "Meeting someone for drinks about the new deal." working late on the investor presentation. He was a commercial real estate analyst. Late nights weren't unusual. But something about these felt different. On Thursday night we were getting ready for bed when his phone lit up on the nightstand. I was closer and the notification flashed across the screen before he could grab it. Got your message. $5,000 is fine. When? Brett snatched the phone so fast he nearly knocked over his water glass. Who's that? The question came out sharper than I intended. His expression went flat. Work. Why are you looking at my phone? I wasn't looking, it just lit up right next to me. Right. He typed something and turned off the screen. Privacy still exists in marriage, Vanessa. I wasn't trying to. I said it's fine. His tone ended the conversation. But it wasn't fine. I lay there in the dark after he fell asleep, staring at that ceiling fan again, my mind turning over those words. $5,000. For what? What kind of business deal was $5,000? And why wouldn't he just tell me? I turned onto my side, watching Brett's face in the shadows. His features were relaxed in sleep, almost boyish. This was the man who'd proposed to me surrounded by desert flowers. Who'd carried me over the threshold of this house. Who sent me coral roses every month. This was also the man who'd been researching how to make me more submissive. Who criticized my body. Whose mother talked about knowing her place like it was something to aspire to. I closed my eyes and tried to sleep, but my mind wouldn't stop. $5,000 for what? And why did every instinct I had scream that something terrible was coming, even though I couldn't name it? I got my answer on Thursday, July 18th. Brett came home from work at his usual time, 5:45, and changed out of his suit into business casual. Navy slacks, a pressed white button-down. Not his normal evening wear. He usually relaxed in gym shorts and a t-shirt. I'll be late tonight, he said, kissing my forehead at exactly 6 p.m. His briefcase was in his hand like he was heading back to the office. Closing meeting with investors. Don't wait up. How late? Midnight, maybe later. These things drag on. He adjusted his collar in the hallway mirror. There's leftover tikka masala in the fridge if you get hungry. His cologne, Bleu de Chanel, the expensive one, lingered after the garage door closed behind him. He only wore that cologne for important meetings. I ate the leftover chicken tikka masala alone at the kitchen island, watching the sun set behind Camelback Mountain. The sky turned orange, then pink, then purple. By 9 o'clock the house felt too quiet. I took a long shower, letting the hot water beat against my shoulders, trying to wash away the unease that had been building for weeks. At 9:30 I changed into my cotton pajamas, the blue ones with little stars, and settled into bed with my Kindle. I was reading a thriller about a woman who escapes an abusive husband. The irony didn't escape me, but I kept reading anyway, losing myself in someone else's nightmare instead of examining my own. At 10:47 p.m. the security system beeped. I looked up from my Kindle. That was the front door opening. The distinctive double beep that meant someone had entered the code correctly. Brett. I called out. No answer. My heart started beating faster. He'd said midnight at the earliest. Why was he home early? And why wasn't he answering? I heard footsteps in the hallway. Heavy footsteps. Heavier than Brett's. Brett, is that you? The footsteps got closer. I sat up in bed, my Kindle sliding off my lap and hitting the floor with a clatter. The bedroom door was half open, the hallway beyond it dark. A man appeared in the doorway. Not Brett. Tall, maybe 6'2". Muscular, broad-shouldered. Wearing all black. Black jeans, black hoodie, black latex gloves. His face was partially covered by the hood, but I could see his eyes. Cold eyes. Focused. I screamed. Scrambled backward on the bed until my back hit the headboard. My brain couldn't process what I was seeing. A stranger. In my bedroom. In my house. What do you want? My voice came out high and thin, barely recognizable. Money? Take whatever. There's cash in my purse downstairs, my jewelry boxes. He didn't say anything. Just moved toward the bed with deliberate, unhurried steps. That's when I saw what he was holding in his gloved hand. A condom wrapper. Understanding hit me like ice water. Not a robbery. Not money. Pure animal terror flooded my system. The kind that bypasses thought entirely and goes straight to survival instinct. The lamp. Brett's nightstand lamp. Heavy glass base. A wedding gift from Lorraine that I'd always hated. I lunged for it. The man lunged for me. I got there first. My fingers closed around the base just as his gloved hand grabbed my ankle. I twisted, swung the lamp with every ounce of strength in my 132-pound frame. The base connected with his temple with a sickening crack. He staggered. His hand released my ankle. I swung again. This time I was screaming, wordless, guttural sounds I didn't know I could make. The lamp hit his skull again. Blood sprayed across our white duvet. Across my hands. Across my face. He fell. But I didn't stop. I was on top of him somehow, my knees on either side of his chest, the lamp rising and falling, rising and falling. Blood everywhere. On the carpet. On the walls. On my star-patterned pajamas. My arms gave out. I stumbled backward, dropping the lamp. It rolled across the floor, leaving a dark smear. The man wasn't moving. His chest wasn't rising. There was so much blood. My hands were shaking so violently I could barely hold my phone. I dialed 911, my blood-slicked fingers leaving red smears across the screen. 911, what's your emergency? Someone broke into my house. My voice didn't sound like mine. He tried to rape me. I think I killed him. Oh God, I think he's dead. Ma'am, I need you to stay calm. Are you injured? No. I don't think so. Is the intruder still moving? I looked at the body on my bedroom floor. No. Where is your husband? Brett. Where was Brett? He's at a work meeting. He said. My brain caught up. The security code. Wait. The man used our security code. He didn't break in. He used the code. Someone gave him your security code? I don't know. I don't know how he got it. But even as I said it, I was starting to understand. Starting to piece together the late-night phone calls, the $5,000, the searches about making wives submissive. Ma'am, I need you to go to a safe room and lock the door. Police are 7 minutes away. I can't leave. What if he's not? Go to a safe room now. I went to the bathroom, locked the door and sat on the floor with my back against the tub. My teeth were chattering despite the summer heat still radiating through the walls. I looked down at my hands. Red. Completely red. The sirens came fast. Less than 7 minutes. I heard boots pounding through the house, voices shouting clear. In different rooms. Police. Is anyone here? Bathroom. I managed. I'm in the bathroom. A female officer opened the door, weapon drawn, then immediately lowered it when she saw me huddled by the tub in my blood-soaked pajamas. Ma'am, I need you to stand up slowly. I tried. My legs wouldn't work right. He helped me up, guided me out of the bathroom. I saw other officers in my bedroom, saw them surrounding the body, saw one of them check for a pulse and shake his head. He was going to rape me, I said. My voice sounded far away. I saw the condom. He was going to. We're going to get you checked out, the officer said gently. But I saw her eyes scanning the bedroom, saw her taking in the security panel by the door showing disarmed in green letters. No broken windows. No forced entry. At the hospital, a sexual assault nurse examiner led me to a private room. She was kind, probably in her 50s with gentle hands and a soft voice, but the examination was thorough and humiliating. I sat in a paper gown under fluorescent lights while she took photographs, swabs, samples. 45 minutes later, she stepped outside to speak with the detective who'd arrived. I could hear them through the door. No evidence of sexual assault. No tearing, no bruising, no defensive DNA under her nails except her own skin. My stomach dropped. The detective, Detective Morris, graying and tired-looking, came in and pulled up a chair. Mrs. Caldwell, can you walk me through what happened? He broke in. No, he used our security code. I don't know how. He came into my bedroom and I saw the condom and I knew what he was going to do, so I grabbed the lamp and... Where is your husband? At a work meeting. He said he'd be out late. Do you have a way to contact him? Yes, I reached for my phone, but it was in an evidence bag. Can I call him? Morris handed me his phone. My fingers were still trembling as I dialed Brett's number. He answered on the second ring. Hello. Brett, you need to come to the hospital. Something happened. A man broke into the house and... What? Vanessa, slow down. What hospital? Scottsdale, Shay. Brett, I think I killed someone. Silence. Then, I'm on my way. He arrived at 1:30 a.m. His suit jacket was off, his tie loosened, his face arranged in perfect shock. Vanessa, my God, what happened? He tried to hug me, but I flinched away. Suddenly, with horrible clarity, I understood. You know what happened? My voice came out flat. Where were you? Where were you? Brett's performance was flawless. Confused. Hurt. Concerned. I was at dinner with clients. Vanessa, baby, you're in shock. You're not making sense. I'm making perfect sense. I looked at Detective Morris. Ask him about the $5,000 payment. Ask him about the searches on his laptop. Ask him. Mrs. Caldwell, Morris interrupted, let's focus on what happened tonight. But I saw it in his eyes. He didn't believe me. And when they took Brett aside to get his statement, when they came back 2 hours later and told me I was being arrested for murder, I knew exactly what Brett had told them. The handcuffs were cold against my wrists. They kept the handcuffs on during the ride to the police station. I sat in the back of Detective Morris's unmarked sedan, my wrists locked behind me, watching the sun come up over the Superstition Mountains. Saturday morning, July 20th. 48 hours since a stranger walked into my bedroom with a condom in his gloved hand. The station smelled like burnt coffee and disinfectant. Morris led me through a maze of hallways to an interview room, gray walls, metal table, 2 chairs. He removed the handcuffs and sat across from me. Mrs. Caldwell, I need to read you your rights. The words washed over me. Right to remain silent. Right to an attorney. Anything I said could be used against me. When he finished, I said, I want to tell you what really happened. Go ahead. So I did. I told him about the searches on Brett's laptop. The phone calls he took in other rooms. The text about $5,000. The way he'd been breaking me down for months, isolating me, controlling every aspect of my life. Morris took notes. When I finished, he set down his pen. Mrs. Caldwell, your husband gave us a statement last night. My stomach tightened. What did he say? He said you've been acting strange lately. Paranoid. He was worried about you making poor decisions. Morris consulted his notes. He said when he came home and found you with the body, you told him you'd invited Derek Morrison over, but Morrison wanted money you didn't have, so you had to defend yourself. The room tilted. That's a lie. My voice came out too high. That's a complete lie. I never said that. He wasn't even there when. Your husband says he arrived home around 11:15 and found you standing over the body. No. He didn't get to the hospital until after 1 in the morning. Check the records. He wasn't at the house. Morris wrote something down. We'll verify the timeline. But Mrs. Caldwell, we have a problem. There's no evidence Derek Morrison assaulted you. No DNA, no injuries, no signs of struggle beyond defensive wounds on his hands. The security system shows he entered with the correct code. And your husband is saying you invited him. Why would I invite a stranger to my house and then kill him? That's what we're trying to figure out. They processed me after that. Photographed me from every angle, front, side, back. Took my fingerprints. Gave me an orange jumpsuit that smelled like industrial detergent and someone else's sweat. A female officer led me through another maze of hallways to a cell block. Maricopa County Jail. I was in jail. The cell was 8 feet by 10 feet. Concrete walls. Metal bunk beds. A toilet with no seat. My cellmate was a woman in her 40s with a neck tattoo who took one look at me and said, "You got bail?" "I don't know. Lawyer." "Not yet." She rolled over facing the wall. "Good luck." I sat on the lower bunk and stared at my hands. Someone had cleaned the blood off at the hospital, but I could still see it. Could still feel it. Sticky and warm and everywhere. They let me make a phone call at 3 in the afternoon. I dialed my parents' number with shaking hands. My mother answered on the 3rd ring. "Hello. Mama, it's me. I'm in jail. They think I murdered someone, but he broke in. He was going to." Me, just slow down. What were you doing that a man broke into your house? The question hit me like a physical blow. What was I doing? Mama, I was sleeping. In my own bed. He used our security code. Your father and I have been praying about this, she interrupted. Brett called us this morning. He's very upset, Vanessa. He said you've been difficult lately. Not listening to him like a wife should. I couldn't breathe. The phone felt slippery in my hand. Brett is lying to you. He hired that man. He paid him $5,000 to. Vanessa. My father's voice now. He must have taken the phone from my mother. We raised you better than this. Whatever happened, you need to take responsibility. Maybe if you'd been a better wife, shown more respect to your husband. I hung up. Stood there in the hallway outside the cell block, the phone still in my hand while a guard watched me with bored eyes. My own parents didn't believe me. That night, lying on the thin mattress that smelled like mildew, staring at the concrete ceiling 12 feet above me, my mind wouldn't stop. I kept thinking about the tracking app Brett made me install 2 years ago. For safety, he'd said. So he'd always know where I was. I'd thought it was protective, caring. Now I understood. He'd been building a cage, one invisible bar at a time. I thought about our joint bank account, how he reviewed every purchase. The time I bought a $30 necklace for myself and he'd asked me to return it. We need to be more careful with money, he'd said. Meanwhile, he bought himself a new watch that cost $800. I thought about our second anniversary. I'd planned a surprise weekend in Sedona. Booked a hotel, made restaurant reservations, even packed our bags. When I told him, his face had gone cold. You don't make plans without consulting me first. But it's a surprise. I don't like surprises, Vanessa. You should know that by now. I'd apologized. Canceled everything. Lost the deposit on the hotel. Never tried to surprise him again. Each memory was a piece fitting into place. Not a marriage. A training program. Breaking me down piece by piece until I was so isolated and controlled that when he finally decided to, what? Punish me? Teach me a lesson? Have me raped into submission? I'd have nobody to turn to. No friends left. No independence. No voice. Except I'd fought back. I'd killed the man he sent. And now Brett was making sure I'd pay for that too. On Tuesday morning, 5 days into what was starting to feel like a life sentence, a guard called my name during breakfast. Torres. You got a visitor. I shuffled to the visiting room in shackles, expecting the public defender they kept saying would come eventually. Instead, Jamie sat on the other side of the plexiglass divider. My little sister. 29 years old, wearing a crisp white blouse and gold hoop earrings, her hair pulled back in a neat bun. She looked furious. I picked up the phone with shaking hands. I would have come sooner if I'd known, she said immediately. Brett called Mom and Dad. He didn't call me. Why didn't you call me? The tears came before I could stop them. I was ashamed. Of what? Of this. Of being here. My voice cracked. Of not being able to fix it myself. Jamie's eyes were wet too. Stop. I don't care what Mom and Dad think. I don't care what Brett says. I know you, Nessa. I've known you my whole life. Now tell me everything. So I did. I told her about the searches on Brett's laptop. The controlling behavior that had gotten worse over 4 years. The $5,000 text message. The way he'd isolated me from friends, from her, from everyone who might have noticed something was wrong. I told her about Derek Morrison walking into my bedroom with a condom in his hand. About the lamp, the blood, the screaming. About Brett's lies to the police. Jamie listened to all of it without interrupting. When I finished, she leaned forward. Do you have access to your bank accounts from in here? No. Why? Because I'm betting Brett's already draining them. And if he paid someone $5,000, there's a record somewhere. He pulled out a notebook. I need you to give me every password you have. Every account, every login. I'm going to find proof. Jamie, you're a financial analyst, not a detective. I'm a forensic accountant, she corrected. Which means I'm very good at finding money people don't want found. Now give me those passwords. For the first time in 5 days, something that felt almost like hope flickered in my chest. That flicker of hope lasted exactly until Wednesday morning, when Jamie called with her first discovery. Nessa, he drained your accounts. I was in the day room, phone pressed to my ear, surrounded by other inmates watching a game show on the mounted TV. What do you mean drained? I mean emptied. Completely. Jamie's voice was tight with controlled fury. Starting the day after your arrest, July 19th, he systematically transferred everything. $12,000 on the 19th. $15,000 on the 20th. $8,000 on the 21st. The last $12,000 on the 22nd. $47,000. Gone. The day room felt too bright. Too loud. Someone won a prize on the TV and the audience cheered. That was our savings, I said. 4 years of. I know. But Nessa, listen. I found something else. Papers rustled on her end. July 15th. 3 days before the attack. There's a Venmo payment from Brett's account for exactly $5,000. The memo says, landscaping services. My legs went weak. I sat down on the nearest plastic chair. He paid him. He actually paid him. And I've got screenshots of everything. I'm calling your public defender right now. Rachel Stein's office was in a strip mall in Tempe, wedged between a tax preparer and a nail salon. Jamie told me later that the waiting room smelled like stale coffee and desperation, and Rachel herself looked like she'd slept in her clothes. She had 67 active cases. Vanessa Torres was just a number in an overflowing file cabinet. Until Jamie walked in with a manila folder and changed that. Miss Stein? I'm Jamie Rodriguez. Vanessa Torres's sister. Rachel barely looked up from her computer. I'm planning to visit your sister tomorrow. Brett Caldwell paid Derek Morrison $5,000 3 days before Morrison broke into their house. That got her attention. Jamie spread the bank statements across Rachel's desk. Walked her through every transaction, every timeline marker, every damning detail her forensic accountant's eye had caught. Venmo keeps records, Jamie said. If Brett paid Morrison for landscaping services and then Morrison showed up 3 days later with a condom and latex gloves, that's not a coincidence. Rachel leaned back in her chair, reassessing this put-together young woman in the crisp white blouse. The problem is proving what the payment was actually for. Brett will say it was legitimate. Actual landscaping or some other service. Then we need Morrison's phone. Jamie's jaw set in a way I would have recognized. The same stubborn determination she'd had since she was 5 years old, refusing to give up on anything. If Brett hired him, they communicated. There'll be messages, instructions, evidence. Rachel studied Jamie for a long moment. Then she pulled out a legal pad and started writing. I'll file a motion to compel. But the prosecution isn't going to hand over evidence that helps your sister. This is going to be a fight. Everything's a fight, Jamie said. I'm used to it. What Jamie found next made her physically ill. She was sitting in the apartment she shared with 2 roommates, both accountants like her, both women who'd met Vanessa at Jamie's birthday party 2 years ago and liked her. They'd left Jamie alone that afternoon, sensing she needed space. Jamie pulled up the county recorder's office website, searching property records for our Paradise Valley address. The quitclaim deed was dated July 8th, 10 days before the attack. Brett had removed my name from the house. Just erased me from the property I'd helped purchase with $15,000 of my own money. The house I'd painted and furnished and turned into a home. Jamie told me later that she'd run to the bathroom and thrown up. Then she'd called Rachel. How is this legal? Jamie demanded. Unfortunately, Rachel explained over the phone, her voice heavy with coffee and exhaustion. If one spouse has access to the deed, Arizona is a community property state but allows this kind of transfer. It's common in divorces. But doing it before arrest, before your sister even knew she was in danger, that's suspicious as hell. Jamie took notes in her neat, analytical handwriting. Building a timeline. Building a case. Brett drained the accounts starting July 19th, the day after the attack. But he'd removed Vanessa from the house deed on July 8th, 10 days before, and paid Derek Morrison on July 15th, 3 days before. This wasn't opportunistic. This was premeditated. That night, Jamie visited me again. I'd been in jail for 9 days. He's been planning this for at least 2 weeks, she said through the plexiglass. Maybe longer. The house deed, the payment, the way he drained the accounts the second you were arrested. Nessa, he set you up. For how long? My voice came out hollow. How long has he been planning to? I don't know. But he made one mistake. Jamie's eyes had that fierce light I remembered from when we were kids and someone tried to bully me at school. She'd been 8 years old and fearless, ready to fight anyone twice her size. He left a paper trail. And I'm going to bury him with it. My cellmate Shauna had been watching me cry every night for a week. On the 8th night, after lights out, after I'd buried my face in my thin pillow trying to muffle the sounds, she finally spoke. Stop crying. I turned over, startled. We'd barely exchanged 10 words since I'd arrived. I can't help it. Yes, you can. Shauna sat up on the top bunk. In the dim light from the hallway, I could see the tattoos covering her arms, flowers and skulls and words I couldn't read. You want to survive in here, you stop showing weakness. I didn't do anything wrong. Doesn't matter what you did. She swung her legs over the edge of the bunk. Matters how you carry yourself. You're educated. You're soft. These women smell fear like sharks smell blood. I don't know how to be anything else. Shauna climbed down and sat on the edge of my bunk. Up close, I could see she was younger than I'd thought. Maybe 42 with gray streaking through her dark hair. You're in here for murder, right? Self-defense. But yes. You kill the guy? Yes. With what? A lamp. Shauna almost smiled. A lamp. Jesus. How many times you hit him? I don't know. I don't remember. I just kept. The memory tried to surface and I shoved it down. Until he stopped moving. So you're a fighter when you need to be. You just forgot. Shauna crossed her tattooed arms. Listen. I'm in here on my third strike. Drug possession. I'm looking at 15 years minimum. I got nothing to lose by giving you advice and you got nothing to lose by taking it. For the next hour she taught me how to survive. Keep your head up. Don't take anyone's food. Don't let anyone take yours. Respond to threats immediately even if you're scared. Especially if you're scared. Trust no one. Watch everything. Stay alert. And stop crying, she finished. Save that for when you get out. If you get out. My sister thinks she can find evidence. Then your sister better work fast. Because they put you in here to break you. Shauna looked at me hard. Don't let them. Every day you wake up strong is a day you win. After she climbed back to her bunk and the cell went quiet except for distant voices and clanging doors, I lay there staring at the concrete ceiling. Every day you wake up strong is a day you win. I'd been a victim my entire marriage. Controlled, isolated, broken down piece by piece until I barely recognized myself. But I'd fought back when it mattered. I'd survived. Maybe it was time to stop being a victim and become a fighter. Rachel Stein didn't sleep Wednesday night. She sat at her kitchen table in her small Tempe apartment, surrounded by case files and cold coffee, writing the motion that might save Vanessa Torres from life in prison. Her 2 cats, both rescues, both named after Supreme Court justices, slept on the couch while she worked. The argument was simple. If Derek Morrison had been in contact with Brett Caldwell before the incident, those communications were exculpatory evidence that could prove self-defense. She cited Arizona precedent Fourth Amendment protections, Brady versus Maryland. Wrote and rewrote until every word was precise. At 2 a.m. she finally finished. At 7 a.m. still wearing yesterday's clothes she filed it electronically with the court. Across town, prosecutor Kristen Yale was drinking her first coffee of the day when the motion appeared in her inbox. She read it once, then again, then picked up her phone. Detective Morris. Do we have Derek Morrison's phone? It's in evidence. Why? Have we pulled the records? Long pause. We didn't see the need. It seemed like an open and shut case. Kristen closed her eyes. Pull them. Now. By Friday afternoon, the judge ordered the prosecution to provide Morrison's phone records within 10 days. Jamie called me with the news. It's not a win yet, she warned. But it's movement. Movement. After 2 weeks of sitting in a cell, movement felt like everything. Saturday morning, a guard appeared at my cell. Torres. Visitor. I expected Jamie. Instead, when I walked into the visiting room and looked through the plexiglass, I saw Brett. He sat there in weekend casual, pressed khakis, a polo shirt, looking like he'd just come from a golf game. Perfectly composed. Perfectly normal. Every instinct screamed at me to turn around and leave. But Shauna's voice echoed in my head. Asterisk, don't show weakness. Face your threats head on. Asterisk. I sat down and picked up the phone. Vanessa, he said softly. I know you're angry, but we need to talk about your defense. Hearing his voice after 2 weeks felt surreal. This man I'd lived with for 4 years, who I'd cooked breakfast for and slept beside and tried so hard to please. Why are you here, Brett? His expression shifted into concern. Sympathy. I want to help you. I know you're not thinking clearly. Maybe you had some kind of psychotic break. Stop. Or we could look at temporary insanity, stress-induced. I know you hired him. The words came out steady. Stronger than I felt. I know you paid Derek Morrison $5,000 to rape me. My sister found the Venmo payment. For just a second, maybe half a second, his mask slipped. Something cold and calculating flashed across his face before the concerned husband returned. That payment was for actual landscaping. You're grasping at straws, Vanessa. Your mother gave him our security code. My voice was getting stronger with each word. She was in on it. Both of you planned this. Brett leaned forward. His voice dropped to barely above a whisper. Be very careful. You're facing life in prison. If you cooperate, accept a plea deal, I'll help you. I'll tell the court you're not well, that you need treatment instead of punishment. I almost laughed. How generous. But if you keep making these insane accusations against my mother and me, things will get much worse for you. Much worse. There was the threat underneath the concern. I hung up the phone and walked away without looking back. My legs were shaking but my spine was straight. Behind me I heard him say something else but I didn't stop to hear it. While I was facing Brett through plexiglass, Jamie was in her apartment, drowning in financial records. She'd moved on from our joint accounts to Lorraine Caldwell's business, Lorraine's Elegant Affairs. Public records showed that Lorraine had co-signed a $50,000 business loan for Brett in January, 6 months before the attack. But when Jamie pulled Brett's business filings, she found nothing. No LC formation. No business registration. No legitimate venture that would require $50,000. What did you use the money for, Brett? She muttered, scanning through bank statements on her laptop. The loan money had been deposited into Brett's personal account. From there, it scattered into withdrawals, transfers, payments to various entities. Nothing cohesive. Then Jamie cross-referenced the dates with the Venmo payment. The $5,000 to Derek Morrison came from the same account where Brett had deposited Lorraine's loan money. Jamie stopped breathing. Oh my God. He used his mother's money to pay for the attack. She grabbed her phone and called Rachel. We need to subpoena Lorraine Caldwell's financial records, Jamie said the moment Rachel answered. She's not just complicit. She's financially invested in this. That's a big accusation. She co-signed a $50,000 loan for Brett 6 months ago. He has no legitimate business. And the payment to Morrison came from that loan account. Jamie's voice was shaking with controlled fury. Lorraine funded the attack on my sister. Rachel was quiet for a moment. Send me everything you have. I'll see what I can do. In the prosecutor's office, Kristen Yale was having doubts. She'd built her career on an 87% conviction rate. Put dangerous people away. Made Phoenix safer. When she first reviewed Vanessa Torres's case, she'd seen exactly what she expected. A woman who killed a man in her bedroom, claimed self-defense with no evidence, contradicted by her own husband. Open and shut. But Rachel Stein's motion was forcing her to look closer. She called a meeting with Detective Morris and his partner, Detective Lauren Hayes. They met in her office Monday morning. Talk to me about the security code, Kristen said. Morris shrugged. Husband says she must have given it to Morrison. Maybe it was an affair gone wrong. Derek Morrison was married with a newborn, Kristen countered. His widow said he was doing side jobs for extra money. That doesn't sound like an affair. Could be both. Did we verify Brett Caldwell's alibi? Morris shifted in his seat. He was at dinner with clients. We have witness statements. From who? Business associates. His boss. Kristen's instincts were pinging, that uncomfortable feeling she got when a case didn't sit right. So people who have a professional interest in protecting him. Detective Hayes spoke up for the first time. I've been thinking about the timeline. Morrison enters the house at 10:47. Torres calls 911 at 11:03. That's 16 minutes. But Brett Caldwell doesn't show up at the hospital until 1:30 in the morning. He said he was in a business meeting, Morris said. For that long? Past midnight. Hayes shook her head. I want to pull his phone records too. See where he actually was. Kristen made a note. Do it. And get me Morrison's phone records. I want to see them myself. After they left, Kristen sat at her desk looking at the case file. At the crime scene photos. At Vanessa Torres's statement. Something wasn't adding up. And if she was wrong, if she convicted an innocent woman, it would destroy more than just Vanessa's life. It would destroy her own ability to trust her judgment ever again. On Tuesday morning, 3 weeks before my trial date, Detective Lauren Hayes signed Derek Morrison's iPhone out of evidence and took it to her desk. She'd been thinking about this case for days. Something about Brett Caldwell's timeline didn't sit right. Something about the whole setup felt wrong. Hayes unlocked the phone with the passcode they'd obtained from Morrison's widow. The screen lit up. Empty. Every app showed zero data. Messages, empty. Call log, empty. Photos, empty. Email, empty. Factory reset. July 17th. One day before the attack. Son of a. Hayes grabbed her phone and called Kristen Yale. The phone is wiped clean. Complete factory reset the day before Morrison went to that house. There's nothing here. She heard Kristen's sharp intake of breath. Nothing. Nothing. 30 minutes later, Rachel got the call from Kristen. Then Rachel had to come tell me. I was in the day room when the guard called my name. Followed her to a small conference room where Rachel sat with papers spread across the table. One look at her face and I knew. He wiped the phone, Rachel said. Morrison Factory reset it on July 17th. The hope I'd been carrying for 2 weeks died right there. Brett thought of everything, I heard myself say. He covered every single angle. But Rachel was already reaching for her phone to call Jamie. Wait, Jamie said when Rachel explained. Factory resets don't delete cloud backups. If Morrison had iCloud enabled, everything might still be recoverable. Can you verify that? I can try. But we need Apple to cooperate, which means subpoenas, which means time. Jamie's voice was tight. How long until trial? 3 weeks. Then we better move fast. 2 days later, Rachel's phone rang from an unknown number. This is Rachel Stein. Miss Stein. A woman's voice, young and shaking. My name is Crystal Morrison. I need to know something about my husband's case. Rachel's pulse jumped. Morrison's widow. Mrs. Morrison, I'm very sorry for your loss. Did he really break into that woman's house to rape her? Rachel closed her office door and sat down carefully. We believe Derek was hired to assault Mrs. Caldwell. We have evidence of a $5,000 payment from her husband 3 days before the incident. Crystal Morrison started crying. Soft, broken sounds that made Rachel's chest ache. He told me he got a security gig, Crystal said between sobs. $5,000 for one night's work. We needed the money so bad. Our son Tyler, he's 6 months old, he needed hernia surgery. Our insurance wouldn't cover it all. Derek said some rich guy needed overnight security at his house. So, just standing guard. You saw the money? July 16th. He brought it home in an envelope. Gosh. I asked why someone would pay in cash and he said rich people are weird about privacy. Her voice broke. I believed him. God help me, I believed him. Rachel's mind was racing. Mrs. Morrison, would you be willing to testify to this? Long silence. If I testify, people will know what Derek really did. What he tried to do. Tyler will grow up knowing his father was. She couldn't finish. Yes, Rachel said honestly. People will know. But it might save an innocent woman's life. More silence. Rachel could hear a baby crying in the background. Okay, Crystal finally said. I'll testify. That same afternoon, my parents appeared on the visitor list. Part of me wanted to refuse the visit. But a bigger part needed to face them. Needed them to see what their choice had cost. They sat across from me in the visiting room, my father looking older than I remembered, my mother's face lined with sleepless nights. Mija, my mother started. We've been praying. Don't. The word came out harder than I intended. Don't tell me you've been praying when you didn't believe me. My father cleared his throat. Vanessa, we spoke with Brett. He says you need help, that you're not well. I don't care what Brett says. My voice cracked, but I didn't cry. Wouldn't cry. He hired a man to rape me, Poppy. His mother helped him. They planned the whole thing. And when I fought back and survived, they framed me for murder. And you chose to believe him over your own daughter. My mother's hands trembled. We didn't know. You didn't want to know. The words came from somewhere deep and angry. Because it was easier to blame me for not being a good enough wife than to accept that Brett is a monster. The visiting room went quiet except for other conversations around us. Other families separated by plexiglass and circumstances. My father's eyes filled with tears. What do you want from us? I straightened my spine. Channeled everything Shauna had taught me about strength. I want you to leave. And I want you to think about the fact that when I needed my family most, you abandoned me. Maybe pray about that. I hung up the phone and walked away without looking back. That night, Jamie was still digging through financial records when she found something that made her go cold. Life insurance policy. Taken out on Vanessa Torres. July 3rd. 15 days before the attack. Death benefit. $100,000. Beneficiary, Brett Caldwell. Monthly premiums paid from the same account where he'd deposited Lorraine's loan money. Jamie stared at the screen, her hands shaking, pieces falling into place with horrible clarity. He was going to kill her, she whispered to her empty apartment. It wasn't just about control or punishment. If Derek Morrison had succeeded, if he'd raped and killed her, Brett would have walked away with $100,000, plus the house, plus all their savings. Nearly $500,000 total. When Vanessa survived and killed Morrison instead, Brett just activated Plan B, frame her for murder. Either way he won. Jamie grabbed her phone and called Rachel even though it was past 10 p.m. I found something, she said when Rachel answered. Brett took out a $100,000 life insurance policy on Vanessa 2 weeks before the attack. Rachel was quiet for a long moment. He tried to have her killed. For money. For freedom. For whatever sick reason he had. Jamie's voice was shaking with rage. We need to add this to the case. Attempted murder. Conspiracy. Whatever charges we can throw at him. The criminal case is the prosecutor's jurisdiction. But for a civil suit after, Rachel paused. If she's acquitted, we can destroy him in civil court. If she's acquitted, Jamie repeated. But we still need Morrison's phone records to prove she didn't murder him. We need that cloud backup. I filed the subpoena to Apple this morning, Rachel said. How we wait. 3 weeks until trial. A wiped phone. A widow willing to testify. A life insurance policy that proved intent. And somewhere in Apple's servers maybe, the evidence that could save my life. Detective Lauren Hayes couldn't sleep. She'd been a cop for 18 years, worked hundreds of cases, sent dozens of people to prison. But something about Vanessa Torres kept her awake at night. On Saturday, while her ex-husband had the kids for the weekend, Hayes sat at her home computer researching iPhone data recovery. The factory reset bothered her. Too convenient. Too clean. But factory resets don't delete cloud backups. If Derek Morrison had iCloud enabled, and most people did without even realizing it, his data should still exist on Apple's servers despite the reset. Hayes drafted a detailed subpoena request for Apple Incorporated, listing specific data points. Text messages, call logs, photos, app data, payment records. She made it airtight. Made it impossible for Apple's legal team to claim she was asking for too much or too little. Monday morning she walked the subpoena through the judicial system herself. Called in favors. Pushed for expedited processing. Detective Morris found her in the courthouse hallway. Why do you care so much about this case? Hayes thought of Vanessa Torres in that orange jumpsuit. Of the terror that must have been in her eyes when a stranger appeared in her bedroom. Of sitting in jail for weeks while her husband destroyed her life. Because what if she's telling the truth? What if we're about to send a rape victim to prison for life because her husband is smarter than us? Morris shifted uncomfortably. The evidence is incomplete. And you know it. 3 weeks felt like forever. Trial was scheduled for September 15th. Every day that passed was another day Vanessa sat in a cell. Then on September 8th, Hayes' phone rang. Apple's legal department. The cloud backup existed. Everything was recoverable. Hayes opened the files at her desk, her partner Morris standing behind her. The first text message appeared on screen, dated July 10th. Brett Caldwell, need this done right. She has to be scared enough to never disobey me again. Hayes' stomach dropped. Derek Morrison, you want me to actually do it or just threaten? Brett Caldwell, do it. She needs to learn her place. Make sure you wear protection. No DNA. Gloves, condom, everything. Derek Morrison. This is serious, man. That's $5,000 worth of serious. Brett Caldwell, you'll get your money. July 15th cash. Morris leaned closer to the screen. Jesus Christ. There were photos. Derek Morrison had sent Brett a picture of $5,000 in cash laid out on his kitchen counter. $20 bills arranged in neat stacks. There was a screenshot of a text message from Brett. Security code 4-7-2-8- #mom will disable the alarm at 10:45 p.m. You have until 11:30. And then, the worst one. A video file. Hayes clicked it with her hand shaking. The video showed a woman sleeping in a bed. Dark hair spread across a white pillowcase. Peaceful. Nowhere. Brett Caldwell's voice whispered, "That's her. She's a light sleeper, so move fast. Remember, teach her to be obedient." Hayes stopped the video. Pushed back from her desk. Morris was pale. "We arrested the victim," Hayes said quietly. "We put her in jail for killing the man her husband hired to rape her. I need to call Kristen." "Yeah. You do." Kristen Yale sat in her office at 11 p.m. that night, reading the recovered messages for the fourth time. She'd built her career on an 87% conviction rate. Put rapists away. Murderers. People who hurt other people. And she was about to prosecute an innocent woman. The text messages were open on her computer screen. The video file paused on Vanessa's sleeping face. The payment records. The security code. Brett's mother disabling the alarm. All of it. Kristen picked up her phone and called her supervisor. "We need to drop all charges against Vanessa Torres. Immediately." "On what grounds?" "On the grounds that her husband hired Derek Morrison to rape her, and when she fought back and killed him in self-defense, her husband framed her for murder." Kristen's voice was steady but her hands weren't. "I have the text messages. I have the payment records. I have Brett Caldwell's voice on video giving instructions for the assault. We arrested the victim." Long silence. "Jesus Christ." "Yeah." Kristen was already pulling up the motion to dismiss template. "I need to file this tonight. And then I need arrest warrants for Brett Caldwell and Lorraine Caldwell as co-conspirators." "Do it." September 10th. Thursday. 2:47 p.m. I was in my cell lying on my bunk staring at the ceiling. Counting days until trial. 5 more days. 5 more days and then. Torres. The guard stood at my cell door. "You're being released. Charges dropped." The words didn't make sense. "What?" "Get your things. You're going home." I sat up. The cell spun. "I don't understand." "Someone will explain." "Let's go." Rachel Stein was waiting in the processing area, grinning wider than I'd ever seen. "It's over," she said. "They found everything on Morrison's phone. Brett's messages. The payment. The video. All of it. You're free." My legs gave out. Rachel caught me, steadying me against the wall. "Vanessa. You're free." "I'm free." "You're free." They gave me back my wedding ring. My phone. My wallet. Everything I'd had on me the night they arrested me 53 days ago. Jamie was waiting in the lobby wearing jeans and a white t-shirt. My clothes from my old life, clean and folded in a shopping bag. When I walked out in those civilian clothes, Jamie ran to me and we collapsed into each other. Both of us sobbing. Both of us shaking. "You're out," Jamie kept saying. "You're out, you're out, you're out." Outside, the September Phoenix heat hit like a wall. 108 degrees. Brutal and bright and real. I tilted my face to the sun and breathed. Free air. Free air for the first time in 53 days. But Jamie was already pulling out her phone, showing me a document she'd been working on. Civil suit against Brett Caldwell and Lorraine Caldwell. She looked at me with that fierce expression I'd seen since we were kids. Now we make them pay for everything they did. 6 months later, I walked into Maricopa County Superior Court wearing a navy suit Jamie helped me pick out. March 2025. The civil trial. Rachel Stein sat to my left, carrying the same battered briefcase she'd had since law school. Jamie sat to my right, dressed professionally in gray, a 3-inch binder of financial analysis in her lap. Across the courtroom, Brett and Lorraine sat with their defense attorney, Douglas Reed, a slick corporate lawyer in a $1,000 suit who specialized in wealthy clients facing embarrassing situations. Brett looked smaller than I remembered. He'd lost his job when his employer learned the truth. His face had been all over Arizona news. Now he sat hunched in a cheap suit, staring at the table. But Lorraine sat rigid, defiant. Her silver hair perfectly styled, her cream-colored suit pressed and proper. Refusing to acknowledge wrongdoing even now. The charges: intentional infliction of emotional distress, false imprisonment, conspiracy to commit sexual assault, fraud. The damages I sought: $350,000 plus punitive damages. The jury was selected. 6 women, 6 men. A 23-year-old teacher. A 40-year-old nurse. A 52-year-old accountant. A 67-year-old retired engineer. Regular people who would decide if what Brett and Lorraine did to me deserved consequences. Rachel stood for opening statements. Vanessa Torres trusted her husband, she began. She trusted her mother-in-law. And they used that trust to plan an attack so calculated, so cruel that when it failed, when Vanessa fought back and survived, they tried to send her to prison for life. I watched the jury's faces change from neutral to horrified as Rachel laid out the timeline. The isolation. The control. The $5,000 payment. The security code. The factory reset phone. Brett's detailed instructions. By the time Rachel sat down, 3 jurors were looking at Brett and Lorraine with open disgust. Crystal Morrison took the stand on day 2. She wore a simple black dress, her hands shaking as she raised them to take the oath. 27 years old. A widow because her husband made a terrible choice. Rachel approached gently. Mrs. Morrison, can you tell the jury what your husband told you about July 18th? Crystal's voice trembled. He said he got a security job. $5,000 for one night's work. We needed the money. Our son Tyler needed hernia surgery and our insurance wouldn't cover it all. Did you see the money? Yes. July 16th. He brought it home in an envelope. Gosh. I asked why someone would pay in cash and he said rich people are weird about privacy. Crystal's eyes filled with tears. I believed him. I believed my husband was doing honest work. Did Derek tell you whose house he was going to? He showed me an address. Paradise Valley. He said it belonged to some rich guy who wanted extra security. Her voice broke. He kissed Tyler before he left. Said, this money's going to fix everything. The courtroom was silent. Then Douglas Reed stood for cross-examination. Mrs. Morrison, isn't it convenient that you're testifying against your husband's killer? Crystal's head snapped up. Her eyes flashed with something I recognized, the anger of someone who'd been pushed too far. My husband was a good man who made a terrible choice because we were desperate. Her voice strengthened. That man sitting there, she pointed directly at Brett, took advantage of that desperation and turned my husband into a monster. Then he tried to destroy the woman who defended herself. You call that convenient? I call that truth. Reed had no follow-up questions. Jamie took the stand on day 3. She'd prepared for this. Practiced her testimony with Rachel for hours. But seeing her sit there in that professional gray suit, her financial analysis binder in front of her, I felt a surge of pride. My little sister. 29 years old. About to bury Brett Caldwell with his own paper trail. Rachel walked Jamie through the timeline methodically. The $50,000 loan Lorraine co-signed. The $5,000 Venmo payment to Derek Morrison. The systematic draining of my joint accounts. The quitclaim deed removing my name from the house. Then Rachel paused. Ms. Rodriguez, did you discover anything else significant in Mr. Caldwell's financial records? Jamie looked directly at Brett. Yes. On July 3rd, 15 days before the attack, Brett Caldwell took out a $100,000 life insurance policy on Vanessa, with himself as the sole beneficiary. The jury gasped. Actually gasped. What did this tell you as a financial analyst? Jamie's voice was steady. Clinical. Damning. It told me this wasn't about control or punishment. It was about money. If Derek Morrison had succeeded in raping and killing Vanessa, which I believe was the actual plan, Brett would have collected $100,000 in insurance, kept the house worth $340,000, and retained all $47,000 from their joint accounts. Total gain, nearly $500,000, plus whatever he stood to inherit as a grieving widower. Douglas Reed objected. The judge overruled. The jury was looking at Brett like he was something diseased. After 4 days of testimony, the jury deliberated for 6 hours. When they filed back and I couldn't breathe. The foreman stood, a 52-year-old accountant who'd taken meticulous notes throughout the trial. We find in favor of the plaintiff Vanessa Torres on all counts. My hand found Jamie's. Squeezed hard. Compensatory damages, $350,000. Punitive damages, $500,000. Total award, $850,000. Brett went pale. Lorraine gasped. But here's what made it real. Brett had nothing. No job. No assets. Everything seized during the criminal investigation. The entire judgment fell on Lorraine. Her catering business, Lorraine's Elegant Affairs, was worth approximately $400,000 in assets and receivables. Her commercial kitchen, her client list, her vehicles, her reputation built over 25 years. All of it. Within 3 months, Lorraine filed for bankruptcy. The business was liquidated. Every piece of equipment sold at auction. Every client contract dissolved. Vanessa Torres received $380,000 from the bankruptcy proceedings. The rest went to legal fees and other creditors. Lorraine Caldwell, once the queen of Scottsdale's catering scene, took a job as a server at Olive Garden. At age 60, Brett moved in with her. A cramped 2-bedroom apartment in Mesa. I saw them leaving the courthouse after the bankruptcy hearing. Brett hunched and broken. Lorraine's face a mask of bitterness. They walked to a 10-year-old sedan parked in the public lot. And I felt not triumph, not joy, just a quiet, profound relief. They couldn't hurt me anymore. With the settlement money, I found a 1-bedroom apartment in Tempe, near Arizona State University. Far from Paradise Valley. Far from the house I'd helped buy with my own $15,000. Far from all of it. 650 square feet. Small kitchen. Tiny bathroom. Windows that faced west toward the sunset. It was mine. I painted the walls myself. Warm terracotta in the living room. Sage green in the bedroom. Bought furniture from IKEA and assembled it alone at 2 a.m., following the instructions step by step, finding odd satisfaction in creating something with my own hands. A couch. A coffee table. A bed frame. Twice a week I saw Dr. Patricia Chin, a trauma therapist who specialized in domestic violence survivors. You survived, she told me in our first session. Now we work on learning to live again, not just survive. The nightmares came less frequently. The panic attacks when someone approached from behind, they were still there but manageable. Dr. Chin taught me to sit with discomfort, to recognize triggers, to give myself grace on the hard days. You're not broken, she said during month 3. You're healing. There's a difference. I adopted a cat from the Humane Society. A 3-legged tabby named Riot who'd been returned twice because she was too needy. She slept on my chest and purred when I cried. We were both learning to trust again. Every Sunday, Jamie and I had brunch at Matt's Big Breakfast in downtown Phoenix. We'd sit at the counter, order chilaquiles and coffee, talk about everything and nothing. Jamie got promoted to senior analyst at her firm. Partially because her work on my case demonstrated her investigative skills. Partially because she was brilliant and always had been. You saved my life, I told her one Sunday, watching morning sun stream through the windows. Jamie shook her head. You saved your own life when you fought back. I just made sure they couldn't bury the truth. But we both knew better. Without her forensic analysis, her refusal to give up, her unwavering belief, I'd be serving life in Perryville. I was a terrible sister for years, I admitted. I let Brett isolate me from you. Jamie reached across the counter and squeezed my hand. You're here now. That's what matters. We made plans to travel together. California coast maybe. New York City. Places I'd never seen because Brett didn't like me traveling without him. 8 months after my release, I interviewed at a dermatology clinic in Scottsdale. Not my old one. Too many memories. A new practice run by Dr. Sarah Brennan, 45, who'd read about my case and reached out personally. I believe in second chances, she said during the interview. And I believe you got a raw deal. The question is, are you ready to work again? I thought about it. Really thought about it. I don't know if I'm ready, I admitted. But I need to try. I was a good esthetician before everything happened. I want to be good at something again. She hired me part-time. 3 days a week. My first client was a woman my age seeking treatment for acne scarring. My hands shook as I prepped the chemical peel. But then the rhythm returned. The confidence, the satisfaction of helping someone feel better about themselves. By month 3 I was full-time. By month 6 I had regular clients who requested me specifically. I was rebuilding not just a career, but an identity beyond victim or survivor. It happened on a random Tuesday in June. Almost a year after the civil trial. I was shopping at Trader Joe's in Tempe, debating between 2 types of pasta sauce. I saw him in my peripheral vision before I saw him clearly. Brett Caldwell. in wrinkled khakis and a faded polo shirt. Stocking shelves. Putting cans of soup in neat rows. He looked older. Grayer. Diminished. Our eyes met. For a moment my body tensed. Ready for flight or fight. The old response programmed by months of fear. But then I realized something. He had no power over me anymore. None. Brett opened his mouth as if to speak. Maybe to explain. Maybe to apologize. Maybe to threaten. I turned away. Chose the marinara sauce. Moved to the produce section. Picked out tomatoes and basil and fresh mozzarella for the caprese salad I was making for dinner in my own apartment. I didn't run. Didn't engage. Didn't give him a single moment of my attention. Later, driving home with my groceries, I realized I was smiling. Not because I'd seen Brett brought low, though there was some satisfaction in that, but because I'd seen him and felt nothing. No fear. No anger. No pain. Just the mild interest you'd give a stranger. He was finally, truly irrelevant to my life. That night, I made dinner in my small kitchen. Caprese salad. Garlic bread. A glass of wine I chose myself. Riot wound around my ankles, purring, begging for scraps. I ate on my couch, the one I'd assembled myself, watching a show I'd picked without asking anyone's permission. My phone buzzed. A text from Jamie. Brunch Sunday? I found a new place. I texted back, yes. Also, I saw Brett today. 3 dots appeared immediately. Then, are you okay? I thought about it. Really thought about it. Yeah, I typed. I am. And I was. Not perfectly healed. Not without scars. The nightmares still came sometimes. The panic attacks still happened. I still couldn't watch certain movies or hear certain songs without my chest tightening. But I was okay. I was living in an apartment I chose. Working at a job I loved. Seeing a sister who'd saved me. Building a life that was mine. The sweetest revenge wasn't seeing Brett stock shelves at Trader Joe's. Wasn't watching Lorraine serve pasta at Olive Garden. Wasn't the $850,000 judgment or the bankruptcy or any of it. The sweetest revenge was this. Living well without him even being a thought in my mind. Outside my window, the sun was setting over the Tempe skyline. Orange and pink and purple. Same sky that had hung over that horrible night in Paradise Valley. But different now. Everything was different now. Riot jumped onto my lap and settled in, her 3-legged body warm and trusting. And I sat there in my small apartment with my rescue cat and my leftover caprese salad, watching the sun go down on a day that belonged entirely to me. Tomorrow I'd wake up and go to work. Help my clients feel beautiful. Have lunch with a coworker who'd become a friend. Maybe call Dr. Chin to schedule our next session. Text Jamie about Sunday brunch. Small things. Normal things. The kind of life Brett had tried to steal from me. But I'd fought back. I'd survived. And now, finally, I was learning to live. If this story of survival and justice moved you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more powerful true stories. Your support helps us share these important narratives.